This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Every second we're awake, we're taking in unfathomably large amounts of information. Together, our five senses process 11 million bits of it every second. But while the unconscious mind continuously gathers these millions of bits, the conscious mind can only handle about 40 of them at any given moment, just a tiny fraction of what we take in. This is just one of the reasons that we so often find it difficult to concentrate on our work. There are severe limits to how much we're able to focus on at once, and keeping the spotlight on the 40 most important bits is hard when the other 10.9 million usually contain more than a few temptations. So in my constant quest to improve my own ability to focus on my work, I recently picked up the book Hyperfocus by Chris Bailey to see if it had any new focus boosting tricks that I could hide up my sleeves, which are honestly kind of short, so I'm not sure how many tricks are going to fit up there. But for me, this book was a great deep dive into many topics surrounding focus and concentration. I took really detailed notes in this book, and I've got them in a new book summaries and notes section on my website, so I'll link to that in the description down below. But in this video, I want to share and summarize 3 of the most important ideas that I took away from the book. Let's start with the skill of meta-awareness, the state of knowing what you're thinking about. Our minds love to wander, and they do it a lot. By some estimates, half the time we're awake. And when your mind is wandering, you're not really aware of what it's focused on. And sometimes this is okay, but when you're trying to focus on your work, you want to reduce the time your mind spends wandering, and meta-awareness is the tool you use to do that. When you're aware of where your mind is, you can consciously guide it back to where it needs to be after you catch it wandering. Hyperfocus spends a lot of time talking about ways you can improve this meta-awareness skill, but here's one of the most important tips that I took away from the book. Create some kind of regular reminder to simply check in on the state of your thoughts, on the state of your mind. Bailey's suggestion is to create what he calls an hourly awareness chime, using a timer or maybe an alarm on your phone. When it goes off, you ask yourself, where is my mind right now? Over the past hour, have I been focused or has my mind been wandering freely? Have I been working with intention or maybe just jumping from task to task on autopilot as I get bored of one task and then another? And over the last hour, have I been working on the most important thing that I should have been working on? And by using this external chime, an external system to help govern your internal self-discipline, by using this over time, you get better and better at continuously exercising this meta-awareness as you work. However, sometimes it's actually a good thing to let your mind wander. Throughout the book, Bailey makes reference to 2 opposing states: hyperfocus and scatterfocus. As you can probably guess, during hyperfocus, you block out everything except for one singular object of attention. Right now, since you're watching this video, that should be my face and not the Twitter feed in your other monitor. Yes, I can see what you're doing, Derek. During hyperfocus, that gets blocked out along with everything else so that you can slip into a state of flow and actually execute on your intentions. But as you're probably well aware, hyperfocus is a difficult state to maintain over a long period of time, especially if you're feeling bored or stressed or in a distracting environment, which is why it's very important to try to go into your work sessions in a positive state of mind, but also to create a distraction-free work environment. By pushing out everything else that could be a distraction, you enable yourself to focus on those most important 40 bits. And if you're curious about how to set up an environment like that, I've got a whole video on it. I'll link that down in the description below so you can check it out after you watch this video. But hyperfocus isn't the best state for every purpose. Not only is it taxing after a while, but because it leans so heavily on your brain's prefrontal cortex, it's also a state where you're less creative. So to get the most from it, you need to slip out of it from time to time in exchange for its exact opposite: scatterfocus, a state where you intentionally let your mind wander. This mode of thought is often terrible for what we tend to narrowly define as productivity, immediate work output, but it's great for creativity. And if we look at a longer time scale than the 5 seconds your boss catches you not typing on your keyboard, we can probably agree that creativity and productivity go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And scatterfocus lets your mind wander around different thoughts in a more creative fashion, finding new connections between them. In the book, Bailey is very clear about one thing. Scatterfocus is not the same thing as unconscious mind wandering, the type of mind wandering that we usually engage in. The key difference here is intentionality. In scatterfocus, you intentionally let your mind wander in one of 3 different modes. First, there's capture mode. In this mode, Bailey says you get out a piece of paper or you open up a new note on your computer, and then you just let your mind wander freely for 10 or 15 minutes, writing down observations and thoughts as they come. And by the end of a capture mode session, you might find yourself with a list of projects you want to check in on, or people you want to reconnect with, or maybe just a list of random ideas. I know personally when I do this, I always end up with more than a few different video ideas. Secondly, there is problem crunching mode. In this mode, instead of letting your mind wander completely free, you pick an object of focus, maybe a problem that you're stuck on, and you let your mind wander around that in a sort of non-linear, relaxed fashion as you maybe go for a walk or a bike ride, which I try to do pretty much every day. This is actually very similar to the walking meditations that Cal Newport talks about in his book Deep Work, or the diffused mode style of thinking and problem solving that Barbara Oakley talks about in her book A Mind for Numbers. There's sort of a lot of common threads around here. And what's really great about this mode is you are thinking about the problem that you are working on during hyperfocus, but you're thinking about it in a much more relaxed state, allowing your entire brain to sort of mull over the problem. The illustration that Barbara Oakley gives in A Mind for Numbers is of a pinball table. If you're using that hyperfocus mode, it's almost like a tightly grouped cluster of those bouncers that keeps the ball bouncing around in one very specific area of the table. Whereas in the diffused mode, or in scatterfocus, you're using the entire table. It's like a very loosely grouped, spaced out group of those bouncers, so the ball can go basically wherever it needs to go. And in these modes, you'll often find that new insights come that wouldn't have come during hyperfocus. Finally, there's habitual mode, where you again let your mind wander freely, but you do so while doing the dishes or doing something that doesn't take a whole lot of mental effort. And personally, on a pretty much daily basis, I tend to combine capture mode and habitual mode. I'll often go for a walk, or I'll go for a bike ride, not really doing problem crunching mode, not only thinking about a specific thing most of the time, but when thoughts come to me, I've got the voice memos app on my watch or on my phone so I can record the thoughts and insights that come to me. And I find that, again, when I'm out on these walks and I'm out on these bike rides, I often get ideas that I would have never gotten if I was just sitting at my desk trying to write. And that's really the purpose of this scatterfocus state. Because you're more relaxed, you think in a less linear fashion and you get more ideas as a result. And then when you switch back to hyperfocus, you can take action on those ideas, especially if you can learn how to set stronger intentions at the outset of a hyperfocus session. This is my third big takeaway from this book. Just as my friend Charles Cornell stressed that intentionality is the most important element to deliberate practice, setting strong and specific intentions is also a key element to actually getting, well, really any work done. So what makes an intention a good one? Well, for me, there is one key question to ask here. When you sit down to work, ask yourself if the intention that you set is specific enough to make your next action an obvious one. Here are a few examples. Write a video script. I literally did this just this morning. Well, that's actually not a very good intention because it leaves a lot of room for interpretation, and writing a video script might be a multi-day process. So instead, I could rephrase that as write a rough draft of the first main body point of this script. Again, it's a multi-day process, so if I know I'm writing on one point, I'm much more likely to get started quickly. And additionally, this might even be more important, I know that I'm writing a rough draft. That's my intention, and that's gonna stop me from making edits, which will slow down the initial writing process. Edits are much better made during a second pass through after I've already gotten the rough draft onto the page. A second example, go to the gym. Again, a lot of room for interpretation there. So things are gonna be a lot better if I know what I'm gonna do when I get to the gym. I know which exercises I'm gonna do, what order I'm gonna do them in, how many sets, and how many intended reps. This is actually part of the reason why I work with an online coach who sets that programming for me ahead of time. But even if I wasn't, I would always make sure to go into the gym with a plan. Now, for me, the absolute most important element to getting my work done is still interest, care, wanting to do the work that is in front of me. But the reality is, all of us have things that we sometimes have to do that we don't want to do. And this applies to people who overall love their job. Personally, I love being a YouTuber. I love being a content creator. There's a lot of freedom involved. There's a lot of creativity involved, but still, there are small parts of the job that I still just don't want to do sometimes. Or sometimes my brain wants to put my main job on the back burner because of some other current obsession. And this is where intentionality really shines, because when you get specific, when you make your next actions completely obvious, and when you tailor your environment for focus, that's when your self-discipline comes in and allows you to get your work done, even if it's not exactly what you want to do in the moment. And that is the crux, the main part of this lesson that I took from this book. Now, one thing that can really help you to set these intentions when you're working is having a well-maintained productivity system. As David Allen famously put it, our brains are for having ideas, not for holding them, which which is why you want to have a well-maintained, organized external system, a single source of truth, if you will, for recording the details of all of your tasks, your events, and your ideas. It's the system that allows you to make sure nothing ever slips through the cracks in your life. I call this a productivity system, and over on Skillshare, I created a class that will teach you exactly how to build one, or to improve yours if you have one already. In the class, we go over several different categories of apps: your task manager, your calendar, your note-taking app, plus file management methods for both digital and physical documents. We talk about how to set these apps up so that they're organized, so that they work together in harmony, and so that you reduce the friction involved in getting things into them. Additionally, we talk about some methods and some interesting meta skills for making sure this system doesn't become a jumbled mess over time, which would challenge its status as that single source of truth. More than 88,000 people have already taken this class, with one recent review saying it was one of the best online classes they'd ever taken. And if you want to take it for yourself, if you want to give it a try, you can actually do so for free by being one of the first 1,000 people to sign up for a free trial on Skillshare at the link down below. When you get that free trial, you're going to have unlimited access to Skillshare's entire platform, which means you can take my class, then go take my other classes on Skillshare, or take any of the thousands of additional classes that can teach you practical skills like audio engineering, video editing, marketing, and tons more. After that, Skillshare is still a very affordable platform with their annual plan starting at less than $10 a month, which is just one of the many reasons why I really like Skillshare, why I have 3 classes on the platform already, and why I have a 4th class coming out in January of next year, which is really going to help my fellow creatives, YouTubers, entrepreneurs, and content creators. So check it out at the link down below. And as always, thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this episode and being a supporter of my show. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit that like button to show the YouTube algorithm what's up, and make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you haven't done so already, so you can get more videos like this when they come out in the near future. Something that I'm committing to for 2021, just to give you a heads up, is fewer videos, but more production quality, more writing time. So my schedule is going to get a little bit more sparse, and you're going to want to have that notification bell on so you don't miss out on videos when they come out in the future. I'm very excited for the stuff that we're cooking up in 2021, both here and on my new channel, Thomas Frank Explains. Right now, there's a lot of Notion tutorials on there, and we may branch out into additional productivity software if my interest goes in those directions. So check out that channel if you're curious. Otherwise, I'll have a couple of additional videos here and here, which you can smash your face onto your phone screen to check out for extra style points. Or if you don't want to do that, don't go punch windows, or I don't know, like eat a bunch of cake or whatever it is. I didn't write a joke for the end of this video, but as always, I'm not your dad.